understand you by and by. Just move on up toward your destination. Though you may find from time to time complication. Bite the lip and take the trip. Though there may be wet road ahead and you cannot slip, just move on up for peace to find into the steeple of beautiful people where there's only one kind. So hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember, your dream is your own. Good afternoon, Learn for Life students, families, our faculty and staff. You know, I'm loving the music that we have here in our 1 o'clock hour. Move on up. Don't let go of your dreams. That is what College Access is all about. This program is a lifelong learning initiative, lending a platform for the growing collaboration between Learn for Life, the 1890 Foundation, Hispanic serving institutions, and other minority serving institutions. Our goal is that we seek to strengthen and promote college access, readiness, enrollment, but most of all, persistence opportunities for our students. And that comes with a variety of services that the College Access Program has prepared for you. You can learn more through contacting your college counselor or emailing the College Access Program at llac.org. Okay, so with that said, I would like to turn it over now to Miss Cheryl Moore. I love calling Cheryl our hostess with the mostest. Cheryl, take it away.
Michelle, thank you so very much, our fearless leader. Listen, Learn for Life students, what's up? One more time, what's good, what's happening, how you really doing? Hope you're having an outstanding day. Listen, we've had a blast hanging out with you all week, and here we go. We have entered into the final round for today for our virtual college week. Remember that we said that we would be having some fun and informative conversations that you would be privy to? Well, now is that time. We're going to engage in a dialogue that you get to eavesdrop on. How about that? You're going to get some interesting information. We want to be sure that you have some foundational understanding about why it is so important to pursue after high school your post-secondary education. Listen, we are here. We are excited. Our panelists are here. Our guest motivational speaker is also joining us on the panel. We are hyped and ready to go. So are you ready? Let's get ready to rock and roll. Listen, she needs no introduction, but we have with us our very own Vice President of Expansion and Innovation, Miss Michelle Harvey is in the building. We have with us the radio host for Word Radio and strategist, Mr. Charles Ellison. And then in the background, he's going to pop on as soon as he can. He just landed, got off a plane, and he wants to join you too, our very own education guru. He is a former member of the Obama administration, Mr. Peter Groff. And then we have our guest motivational speaker, Professor Carliss Chatman, and I'll tell you a bit more about her later on. You're going to hear more from her. So are you ready to rock and roll with us? Because we are ready to go. Of course you are. Let's do this. Listen, Charles and Michelle and Carlos, I thought that it would be very, very important for us to maybe chat about the state of higher education as you perceive it to be right now, and how that impacts our students, number one. And then secondly, a conversation around HBCUs and why it is that we are so passionate about connecting our students to these historically Black colleges and universities and Hispanic serving institutions, and the benefit to our students who are part of the underserved population, but who are extraordinary and will be successful in their pursuits. How about that? Can we get started?
Yes.
All right.
Awesome. Awesome. Charles, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we're going to start this conversation.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much, Cheryl. Yes, it's a very exciting conversation because, one of the things that we don't realize about historically Black colleges and institutions, there are about like over 100 of them, if I'm not mistaken, nationwide. And some of these institutions are among the most robust, some of the strongest research, innovation, academic, intellectual centers that we have in the country. Typically we talk about those kind of big brand names, like those elite Ivy League schools, right, with the big brand names in terms of what they offer in that portfolio or that suite of academic and intellectual type areas. But we don't often talk about HBCUs in that same breath, but they do. And there's also a lot of very bright, very also extremely talented professionals in a variety of fields that come out of those schools. I myself am not an HBCU graduate, but as I got older, what later on in life became more familiar about what historically Black colleges and institutions offer, sometimes I look back on that in retrospect. I'm like, wow, maybe I should have went to one of those institutions as well, especially when you look at what they have to offer. So I think this is a very important conversation to help students understand that these are institutions to definitely consider. Also, these are institutions that do so much more with less. That's a bit unfortunate. There is a big conversation, there's a big debate happening actually as we speak on Capitol Hill today about getting more funding for HBCUs, and a lot more funding is going to those institutions. But these are institutions that are very familiar with the sorts of lived experiences that we all go through as Black and brown people, as young Black and brown people. They're familiar with those struggles. So they've tailored those institutions to accommodate those struggles, to also help translate or transform those lived experiences and those struggles into real success and real achievement. I mean, for example, I think it's about I think you said this the other day, Michelle, when we had a panel about this last week during White House HBCU week, 25% of all STEM or science, technology, engineering, mathematics graduates are coming of Black STEM graduates are coming out of historically Black colleges and universities. One last point here too, before I ask a question for the panel, especially at this time in our history, there's a real urgency about our young people finding safe spaces, right? Finding safe spaces and spaces that really do truly not just speak to them, but that can, in many ways, on especially on emotional and social and economic levels, and many other multiple levels, can help also protect them and really guide them and help navigate them onto a better path. HBCUs are those institutions. They are those safe spaces. So definitely it's something for many young people that are listening in right now, many young people at Learn for Life to consider. Learn for Life has a very good partnership already set up with 1890 HBCU universities and institutions. And especially if you're interested in getting into the agricultural sciences, which is going to be a real big field to get into, especially with climate crisis, you can get all your expenses paid for, your tuition paid for, by going to one of these top-notch institutions. Michelle, I definitely want to go to you as far as just you're an HBCU graduate. So how did that translate for you?
Well, I thank you for asking that question. Coming out of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Public Schools, I was a special education student. And the reason why was because I had a 40% hearing loss in my left ear, and I had to wear a hearing aid. And at that time, that qualified me for special ed. And throughout my high school career, it didn't matter that I was a straight A student. No one paid attention to me. I was just, a kid who showed up to one of the most prestigious high schools in the city, every day. And it just so happened my senior year, I got a counselor who had A through G, and my name was Crumpton. She came to me, you have these wonderful grades. What are you thinking about for college? To make a long story short, I ended up at Winston-Salem State University, and this is the benefit of an HBCU. I relate to our students in so many ways because as an adult, once we make it, quote unquote, in our field of study or in our life pursuits, we forget sometimes our own humble beginnings. So I love to say my mom was a cook, my dad was a carpenter, but for the students, I want them to know what that looked like was a hole in the roof, and when it rained, a pot on the floor to catch it. When I went to an HBCU, what I found was acceptance. So what? You're a minority. So what? You're poor. So what? You live in poverty. There is something special about you. We will help you to develop that. We will nurture that. We will polish you and send you out into the world confident in yourself. And that is what Winston-Salem State did for me. It allowed me the space to see myself in comparison with other students that I went to school with and to find my own value as a human being. So that's why I love HBCUs, and I wish everyone could have that experience.
Oh, wow. That's pretty profound too. And Carlos, with this conversation, because it's not just about like HBCUs, right? It's not about those particular institutions. We're not doing like a cheerleading kind of pom-pom session on like, oh yeah, you got to go to the HBCUs. It really is. It's about like, getting towards excellence. How do we get, especially our young Black people, our young brown people, other BIPOC populations, but especially Black, brown students, how do we get them towards excellence? Do you feel like HBCUs could do this?
I think HBCUs can do it, especially if, we know that there are educational gaps in high school and elementary education.
Right.
And I think, you see so many students who will go to a PWI and, they've had chemistry, but not the right amount of chemistry, or they've had calculus, but the class wasn't, fulsome enough. And so they get behind and they never catch up. Even a lot of the larger state institutions. And so HBCUs are really, really good at helping our people catch up and helping them get to excellence so that they can get into the grad school, right? So that they can go on to something else. The stats that you threw out about STEM degrees, the same is true when you look at professional degrees, when you look at law school degrees and med school degrees and MBAs. Most people of color have gone to an HBCU for undergrad when they have those professional degrees. And I think it's the nurturing and it's the helping you to catch up in a comfortable environment and not to have to fight all the time. I've only ever taught at PWIs, and I went to PWIs. And, there's a lot of extra work outside of the classroom at those institutions, just to be treated fairly, just to be recognized and appreciated. And so, for a student who's also behind academically, to have to fight those battles in addition to catching up, like that's often what has people dropping out.
Yeah, no, that's real important. We're still having this conversation about HBCUs, and did Peter Groff, did he come on yet? Is he there yet? No, okay, so I'm trying to let's see when he comes in, so we can ask him questions too, particularly from the perspective of a former state legislator and how we support those institutions, how important that is. How do you think, Michelle, like how does that happen too? Like that's part of the discussion we had yesterday. Before I get into like some more questions about the value of HBCUs, particularly in this century. Like, how do you think we try to support them? It's a two-part question. How do you, one, try to support these institutions more so they can, as Carliss said, like help our young people catch up, right? But two, there's a big need to also upgrade and improve the infrastructure of these universities. That's the big debate that's taking place on Capitol Hill right now as we speak, trying to get those billions of dollars into those schools so we can do even better than we're doing now. So one, how do we help these schools? How do we support them more? And then two, how do we, you're overseeing the college access program. How do we start funneling more of our young people into these institutions so we can get these better outcomes?
Well, I think that although there are two questions, they are very much intersectional, and this is what I mean. To support HBCUs, we need to get more students there. Primarily, these colleges make their money from tuition and room and board. So to support them, they need to have higher enrollment. Most HBCUs don't have the type of endowments that you see at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill or some of these other schools. So that's one way. The second way is that the country as a whole, from the business side to the political side, must see HBCUs as an investment in community. Carliss hit on that fact, and we had spoken of it. 25% of African American STEM degrees, 40% of all Black members of Congress, 40% of all Black engineers, 50% of all Black lawyers, and 80% of all Black judges graduated from HBCUs. That is a data point that shows that this is an investment in community. If we believe that we're going to pull up Black and brown communities, there's literature out there. We already know that education is the pathway for that. Then we must invest in the universities that serve these population of students, not just HBCUs, but also our Hispanic serving institutions. It's really important.
Yeah, no, it was really important. Yeah, talk about that too, Carliss, about like, what's the business case for HBCUs, right? Like, Michelle was saying, HBCUs must be viewed as an investment in community. And typically when we think about HBCUs, okay, like we're being like Black focused or Black student focused. It's much more than that. I mean, you're really investing in just national infrastructure. I mean, these are like important central pillar parts of, just kind of like they're economic engines for the communities that they're based in, and really economic engines for just for the nation as a whole, particularly when you're looking at how so many graduates, undergraduates and graduates are coming out of those schools.
Yes, and I think that when it comes to, recruiting diverse talent, given the success rate of HBCUs at actually graduating Black students, right? There's a business case, like there's no way you can diversify the C-suite and the boardrooms if you aren't recruiting at HBCUs, because that is where you are going to get the critical mass of students of color. And it's simply because, the PWIs don't graduate us at the same rates. The PWIs aren't supporting us at the same rates. And so, I also think that we have to remember the historical reason we have those institutions in the first place, and know that many of the reasons why HBCUs were founded still exist, right? Systemic racism and oppression still exists in a lot of areas. And so for a lot of students who can't go across the country, they may not feel comfortable going to their closest predominantly white institution. Those badges and incidents of slavery still exist, such that the only way that many of us are going to get educated and feel comfortable getting educated is going to the HBCU closest to us. And I think that gets lost in the conversation, in my opinion. It's very much like, it's promoting Black culture, but we don't think about it as the safe space that is still very necessary because of the climate of this country.
Yeah, no, I think that's extremely important. How do we let's expound further on that, right, Michelle, about like how do we sell this further to particularly students in environments like where they are now at Learn for Life, and in California. California not really that it's not really an HBCU state. I mean, there's a few institutions, state institutions that have a high proportion or ratio of Black and brown students, but it's not considered like a state with HBCU. I don't think there's a HBCU, technically a HBCU in California. So it's a big journey. It's a big ask to ask students in a place like California, where the bulk of Learn for Life students are, to suddenly go to another part of the country, say in the South or the Southeast or the Northeast or Midwest, to go to these other schools. But, you know, what's the selling point? What's the pitch, you think?
Peter Groff, I'm going to admit him into this conversation. I'm so happy that he's here. Hi, Peter.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well, but look, I'm going to go ahead and answer your question. You're right. California does not have HBCUs, and I do believe this is why we named this the College Access Program. With so many Black and brown students, and we have talked about HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions being places that nurture, that build up our students, that lead them to professional careers, that can put them in those judgeships, to be those engineers. There is no way for students to achieve that without the additional support of HBCUs. Everyone will not fit into a USC or UCLA. And we want to make sure that all students, I believe that is the purpose for Learn for Life. It is something that is congruent with HBCUs, is that Learn for Life believes in students' abilities. We know that you may not be prepared for college, but we know you are capable once you get there. And as our director of college counseling said yesterday, we have just kind of coined a phrase here at Learn for Life, and it's college, just go. I didn't realize that, you know, I would have all of the opportunities that I had until I stepped into a college. I didn't have an example. My mother didn't graduate from high school, and my father did not go to a college. So what would have been my motivation? Who would have told me about it? So I did not feel that I had that opportunity to just go to any institution, although I was accepted to several. I chose to go to the HBCU because I know that I needed just that wraparound service of saying, hey, we got you, we believe in you, and we're going to help you get to the finish line. Go Winston-Salem State University.
Also joining us now is the Honorable Peter Groff. He's a former president of the Colorado State Senate, also former Obama White House appointee. He joins me regularly he's a regular contributor, longtime contributor on Reality Check WURD. Done some other things, used to be on Sirius XM Radio too, was my partner there quite a long time ago when broadcasting on there. So it's good to see him. Good to see you, Peter. Peter, just from your perspective, especially as a former policymaker, and also you worked at a senior level in the White House and in the education department, looking at education issues. And just to get your perspective as a policymaker, the importance of HBCUs. And like I said, you know, as we're talking, I mean, in real time, there's a big push on Capitol Hill as in Congress as we speak for more investments in HBCUs. So, you know, you definitely need that state and federal support. But your perspective on the importance of them, why they're so important, especially at a time like this. Do we have Peter? I think we got a connection hiccup. Peter? We
have him. He's having some issue with the Wi-Fi, I think, but hopefully it will kick in momentarily.
That's all right. Carliss, while Peter comes in, and we'll just go to, I think we got him coming back. Oh, no, we lost him, but that's okay. Carliss, as we're still continuing with this discussion, how do we reconcile? Because it is, you're right. I mean, we need to remember that history, the reason for these types of universities in the first place. It does, you know, put us in sort of a pickle sometimes with that conversation. Because it's not like we're asking young Black people, young Black, brown people to go to these institutions. It's not like we're sort of encouraging a form of segregation or self-segregation, so to speak. I mean, but we need to address that. We need to tackle that aspect of the conversation. We're just saying, hey, listen, we've set up where the institutions have been built with your best interest in mind. But still, how do we reconcile that conversation, right? Because it's still going to be that choice between, do I go to the HBCU or do I go to that brand name, predominantly white institution?
You know, I think we have to change the message. A lot of HBCUs would be better schools for non-Black people too, right? Like HBCUs, you know, a lot of immigrants would do better at an HBCU than at a PWI. You know, if you think about, you know, the original purpose of the HBCU, which was to be that place for people who are excluded and don't belong at predominant institutions, that describes more than Black people, right, in this country. And I think, you know, so some of that is a marketing messaging, you know, issue. If HBCUs are getting all these people into med school and business school and engineering graduate school, that's a message that immigrants want too, right? That's a message, you know, if you're going to get the nurturing and support to do well in graduate school, and you know, you're going to get into the Harvards and the Yales, which are the top, you know, graduate schools, because the teaching is better and closer and just a better quality. That's a message that needs to get out, you know, and you know, not all students need the smaller classrooms, not all students need the attention, but a lot of students across all racial backgrounds do.
Yeah.
And you see students, you know, the dropout rate and the failure rate at PWIs is, you know, especially the big state schools, is not just high for students of color, right?
Yeah.
A lot of white students drop out of those institutions too. And so, you know, I kind of view the fact that HBCUs are still mostly Black is not a Black people problem, but a social problem. A fact that the majority still views them as lesser, not that we are self-segregating.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's a lot of commentary on those PWIs, on those predominantly white institutions, and what they need to do or what they're lacking as well. And do we still have Peter yet? We have Peter? No?
No. Charles, I do have a comment. Carliss,
Sure.
You're 100% on it. 25% of all graduates from HBCUs are not people of color. Sometimes we forget that West Virginia State, South Carolina State, these schools are land grant institutions that fall under the designation of HBCUs. And so when we offer these opportunities to students in California, it's not just predominantly Black institutions. You are correct. This is something that will benefit immigrant families, people who are first generation college goers, strivers. There are a plethora of people out there that HBCUs can support. And one thing I've been big to assert across our organization is I realize that the majority of our students are Latino, but I want them to understand that HBCUs are safe spaces for them. And I realize that we do not have those here in California, but I know that if they go out and experience that it will give them something special in the college experience.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely important. Okay, we're hearing that Peter Groff probably not going to be able to join us. There's some storms that are happening in the region. He's in the Washington, D.C. region, as I am. I do hear some rumbling. Hopefully my connection will be a little bit more robust through this conversation, but we've got Michelle Harvey with us at Learn for Life, also Carliss Chatman as well, who teaches law. I know he teaches law at West Virginia State.
Washington and Lee.
Washington and Lee. I do apologize for that. Washington and Lee. Are you still visiting, lecturing at George Washington University?
Yeah, I'm visiting at George Washington and teaching at Washington and Lee at the same time. So I'm kind of like, you know, I'm all over the state of Virginia and DC. I'm
just out of curiosity, what's the law, what sort of space of the law do you focus on?
Business law, business, commercial, transactional, like entrepreneurship, all that kind of stuff.
Are there like, I don't know, just out of curiosity, I mean, are there HBCU grads who've like come across your desk or have been in your classrooms? Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, at every level of institution where I've taught, but I often find, you know, at a George Washington or a Washington and Lee, you know, both top schools, often a majority of our Black students are HBCU graduates.
Yeah, no, that's important to know.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
So lots of Hampton and Howard at both of those places.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the geography too. But I also think those students do well, right? They do well in undergrad, and then they do well in the LSAT, and they get into the top schools. And so I see, that's the majority of the Black students that I have seen as a law professor, HBCU graduates.
Wow. Yeah, one thing I'm curious, because you mentioned Hampton, Howard, there is like a pool of those schools of HBCUs who are considered like the big box school, the really well-known school, like Howard. Now we have a vice president who is a Howard graduate. Howard considered like the center, the mecca of Black education. Sometimes it's referred to. Hampton is another brand, Morehouse, Spelman. Those are the ones that are a part of our zeitgeist, our pop culture. So there's that. When sometimes it feels as if those are the only HBCUs, but there's a whole universe of other HBCUs out there. But one thing, sort of talking about that, there is that, I think, that struggle in branding HBCUs, right? We'd love to get your thoughts on this, Michelle Carliss, which I often reflect on. Right now, a lot of people still view HBCUs, hey, these are the places you go to for the homecomings, the social scene, the marching bands, the football programs. And that might be all like fine and okay and great, but it's really important, and Target stress how important it is for young people to understand, for people to understand that these institutions are offering so much more, and the real resources, the real value that you're getting out of these institutions is through those degree programs, through the intellectual capital, through the research centers. I mean, the 1890s have these centers of excellence that are receiving, millions to billions of dollars worth of federal funding to do all kinds of real crucial, critical research. And also HBCU graduates over their lifetime can make up to nearly $1 million more than a non-HBCU graduate over their lifetime, just by benefiting from these degree programs. But I mean, how do we balance that? I mean, at one point, young people are going to be young people, and they do want to go to spaces that are not just safe, but also fun. But we also have to make sure that they understand the intellectual, the academic, research, innovation value of these places. Michelle, I'll start with you.
Yes. Let me admit again. Okay. So yes, there is so much intellectual value in these spaces. One example I would have is that I had a friend my sophomore year who I went to her dorm to hang out, and she was packing. I'm like, where are you going? And she looked at me and she said, Japan. Well, little did I know they had a partnership for those working in biological sciences to go to Japan to work on cancer research. Here was this 19-year-old brilliant African-American woman who had the opportunity to go to Japan and do cancer research. And I can only tell you today she works over at the National Institute of Health. Okay, so that's another thing that HBCUs did for me. I can call school board members, elected members of Congress or the Senate. The outreach is unbelievable. The connectivity is unbelievable in these spaces. And, people sometimes they are like, how do you know folk? Well, those are the contacts that you make at HBCUs. We now have a vice president that is a Howard graduate. So I think that speaks for networking and even for interest in things that are not academic. I mean, Puffy and one of his guys met over at Howard University too. So there would never be Bad Boy Records without Howard University. So it just goes to show that these spaces are not only safe, but they are spaces of innovation. And then to the research portion, I do want to speak, and I know that our hostess Cheryl can chime in. She actually visited a webinar from Tesla, and they were recruiting HBCU graduates, and the reason was the agricultural, STEM, technical and mechanical trades that are taught at these four-year universities. Cheryl, do you want to chime in on that?
Absolutely. I'm finding more that these large companies are really targeting Black and brown students in particular, and those who are attending HBCUs in order to offer internships and future opportunities for employment. So what I want our students to know is that when we say that you really are all that, a bag of chips and a pickle on the side, we mean that. You are a hot commodity. And you are necessary and needed, and the world needs you, the industry needs you, your gifts, your talents, and all that you bring to the table. And we believe that an HBCU is one of the places that will nurture those gifts and those talents and those skill sets so that you are prepared to go out into the world and be successful in whatever you choose to do. So the opportunities are there, and we are here to make sure that you take advantage of all of those opportunities that are afforded to you.
Yeah, we finally got Peter Grob back,
Yes.
Senator Grob. So yeah, I don't know if you heard my last question, Peter. You know, just kind of looking at it from the perspective of a policymaker. You were a state legislator. You also worked, at high levels, the highest levels on the federal level, working on education issues, and kind of sort of capturing for us that real value of HBCUs. Selling it to us policymakers, and economies, communities about, hey, why you need to make this investment, selling it to young people who might be interested in these schools, who are looking at them as potential options for their academic matriculation and for their future careers as well. No, we lost them again. Right.
Oh no!
I also want to, so many questions and so much conversation there. Hopefully, at some point we'll get Peter back. I know I've got to give some time to our speaker, to Carliss Chatman. I know she's got a few motivational words that our young people need to hear. So I'm going to pass the mic off to her. Pass the team's mic off to her so she can begin to grace us with some of her thoughts for the day.
Well, Carliss, before you get started, Charles, we cannot let this go any further without telling you thank you. We appreciate your dedication to Learn for Life students and to the HBCU initiatives, the BLA initiatives that you assist, and the internships that you are providing Learn for Life students with. We love partnerships, and we love people who care deeply for children the way we do. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Dr. Chatman, I just am dying to hear you. Please go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great to be a part of this conversation so far. I just think, it is so important to be involved with organizations like this and to get support from organizations like this. Like, you already have a head start if you are, in hearing this conversation and hearing this stuff now instead of later. So count yourself lucky to be here. It is my honor truly to be speaking with you today. And the main reason I say that is because I'm always surprised when people ask me to be the one to speak. And part of the reason for that is because I often forget what I've accomplished, because I go through life and I take it one step at a time. I also go through life moving past one no at a time, as I generally refuse to hear the no's. So I'll give you an example of that. In 2009, I decided I wanted to be a law professor. So I called my undergraduate institution, I called my law school, let them both know that I wanted to be a professor, and then had a call with the people at those schools in charge of helping alumni transition into academia. And to my surprise, at both schools, the people who had the job of helping me said things like, why did you go to school here if you wanted to do that with your life? And you should have made better grades if that was your goal. And my favorite one was, you've been working as a lawyer too long to be a law professor. So thankfully, by that point, I'd spent most of my life hearing I could not do the very things that I am doing now. So like a ninja or a Jedi, if you're more into that, I refused to hear that, right? Instead, in response to one of them, what I said was, you mean to tell me that because I actually know how to practice law, that disqualifies me from teaching the law? That doesn't make sense. And in response, what he said was, "That's just the way the world works." Well, many of you probably already know this, but the way the world works has never been in a way that is intended for someone like me to succeed. Someone like me is always too much of all the wrong things and not enough of all the right things, allegedly. I've learned a pivotal lesson over the years, and it is this. When people say you can't do that, what they usually mean is I couldn't do that. People project their own insecurities and shortcomings onto you because they cannot imagine surviving what you have been through and getting where they happen to be. Or it means that they were simply too afraid to try. But that does not mean that you can't get where it is that you want to go. Those people don't know you and they don't know your life. If you get nothing else out of what I have to say today, I want you to hear this. What you are and who you are is enough. And usually it's more than enough. You may not get to where you want to go in the normal way or in the normal time frame, but if it is meant for you, you will get there as long as you do not give up and keep doing the work. The no's can only block you if you let them. When I went to college, people around me were getting tutors for the hardest classes. You know, people were taking SAT prep courses in high school. If they were into sports, they would have these coaches so that they could get the scholarships and get into the best schools. My parents didn't have the money for that, and they also didn't believe in that. So I'm like, most people who got to top schools, I didn't take a prep course because I couldn't afford it. I didn't have tutors to help me be the #1 person in a class or even at the top of the class. So as a result of that, people love to tell me what my limits were, that I shouldn't be taking hard classes and risking getting low grades because I might not get into schools at all if I got low grades in the hard classes, that I shouldn't worry anyway, because if I could just make good grades in easy classes, I could get a scholarship and figure it out later. And what I've come to realize, something very valuable over the years, when someone underestimates me, what they know and the information they have access to, I have the ability to learn. But what my life has given me, street knowledge, common sense, the ability to read people, the experiences that come from working my way through school and providing for myself, they will never have the opportunity to learn. So over the years, I've met a lot of rich people. I've met a lot of powerful people, and I've met a lot of smart people. And you will notice I didn't say I've met anyone that has all three of those things in one person. The richest people I know are often not the smartest people I know. The most powerful people I know are sometimes rich, but they are rarely the smartest. So the idea that everyone that has more than you is better than you in every way is simply a lie. As a result of these experiences, I like to think of myself as a unicorn, because over the years, I have learned most of what they know, and I have combined it with those things that make me special. I know that, unlike the rich and powerful people I encounter, I'm actually smart. And unlike many of the smart people I meet, I actually have the ability to become rich or powerful because I know how to talk to people and understand regular people. So you sitting here now have everything it takes to be a unicorn too. Your life isn't picture perfect, but nobody's is. But what you have experienced gives your life some richness and depth that other people can't ever replicate. The only problem you have is people don't believe in unicorns. They can't see you, so you have to see yourself and ignore their nose. What those people saw in me was someone who didn't look like someone who belonged in the places I wanted to go. There was a lot that I had to figure out on my own because many of the people who were supposed to help me didn't think I was worth their time. But when I look back over the years, I can sincerely say that the difference maker in my life was continuing to seek help from people who could see my vision for myself and my unicorn spirit. I also had to develop the humility to receive that help. So when I look at the times that I've struggled the most, it was when I thought I could just do it on my own and ignored those who were trying to help. Now, my helpers have come from some strange places. You know, it's the church member who bought me books and made me teach Sunday school and speak in church, or the third grade teacher who I thought was being mean because she gave me extra work but who was actually helping me to be prepared. The high school counselor who made sure I took all the right classes, even though many of my teachers didn't want me in the room. The administrative assistant in a dean's office who takes me under their wing, right? Or a paralegal at a law firm who makes sure that like I know what I'm supposed to know. And I could go on listing these people who are not the typical mentors and helpers, but who are the people who helped me the most, right? It's not the person who knows the CEO and who can write the letter to get you into the place, but they are the people who care for you the most and who, for me, taught me what they knew I would need later. Throughout my life, I've found that these helpers arrive at just the right time. And my problem is I tend to be stubborn, right? And I don't want to see those helpers for who and what they are in the moment. I've relied on my own idea of what is right and what and who will benefit me the most. And as a result, I've done a lot of unnecessary work for no reason other than being too proud to ask. And I've done the work those helpers insisted that I do, but usually begrudgingly and not happily. So what I'm trying to learn in this phase of my life is to try harder to ask for help and to receive it. To know that if I cultivate a circle of trust, those people can be my support in times of need. Now, I know that seeking help and taking help is hard because people can and will do you harm. And it's hard to know who has your best interest at heart. What I've learned over the years is that a true mentor does not impose their will upon you. A true mentor listens. A true helper meets you where you are and works to make you better. Those people provide you with constructive criticism, but they do not seek to tear you down or to make you feel unworthy. And learning to discern the difference between constructive criticism and negativity is really hard and it takes time, but it's important to know that every time someone says something negative to you, that's not a takedown, but also to know when people are attacking you and attacking your spirit, right? So to develop that discernment takes time, and it's really an important distinction, right? To figure out who's a helper, who's a mentor, and who's someone that's in your way. The helpers and the mentors give you advice and support that helps you and your goals. And it's not to fulfill some unspoken goal or unfulfilled desire they have for themselves. It's to benefit you and not their agenda. And so the biggest advice I have is beware the people who do not live their own truths, because those are often the people who aren't going to have your own best interest at heart. Now, everything has not been rosy for me. I think if I were to put it all on a legal pad and make a list, I'd probably have a longer list of setbacks than successes. There have been many times when I have just wanted to do the easier thing and stop trying. And one thing I've come to realize is that, maybe I should recategorize some of those setbacks, because many of the setbacks that felt like setbacks in the moment were actually blessings in disguise. Maybe something I called a setback made me slow down when I needed to stop and rest. Or maybe a setback blocked me from doing something that looked amazing on the surface, but that would have actually been a disaster. And at other times, I've been in a disaster that has taught me a valuable lesson. And sometimes that lesson has been to just be flexible and not to be so critical, right? I've had setbacks that remind me that I cannot rush the process, that I have to stay ready, but can't do something when I'm not ready. And often a setback occurs because something just is not for me and I'm the one forcing it. So I've learned to consider why it is that I want to do something. Is it because it is what will make me feel fulfilled? Or is it because it will make me impress other people and it just looks better? And I like to say that I have the misfortune, or maybe it's a good thing, of having what I call instant karma. So when I do something that my heart fully is not in, or that I'm merely doing for show, I tend to fail and fail quickly. So in closing, what I want you to know is that not having resources, not being rich, or not having the opportunities and talents that you perceive other people to have does not mean that your dreams are impossible. All it means is that you will get there in a different way. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being different. That other way may take you longer, but that does not mean that it is not possible. But you should always remember that what is intended for you is yours. You're just doing the work that it takes to make your goals that much more rewarding when you do reach them.
Awesome. Oh my goodness, Carliss, thank you so very much for those inspirational and empowering words. So heartfelt. I tell you, I was moved. I was encouraged. You even challenged me. So thank you so very much for that. And I know that our students really, really resonated with what you had to say. And I know that they've been challenged and pushed to even try harder to reach the goals and the aspirations that are before them. I'm going to ask at this time if Michelle has any closing comments or remarks.
Well, I'm going to have just a comment, Carliss, because I can't not say anything about that excellent presentation that you gave. But I would like to let Charles close out because I'm glad he's my guest, and I'm going to let him have his final words with the students. What Carliss made me think of is just where my unicorns at. Okay, I know Learn for Life students, you are out there. I know this resonated with you. I know that we share something in common through this conversation, and that is not always knowing what the future will be, but knowing that we are worthy of excellent outcomes. And Professor Chatman, you just really inspired not only our panelists today, but I'm sure our teachers and counselors and students who are out there listening. They need someone to affirm for them that who they are and what they are, it is truly enough. So thank you for that. You are welcome in the Learn for Life space anytime we can get you back.
Thank you for having me. This is great. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and partner, Charles Ellison. Charles, go ahead and take us out of here.
Yep, going to definitely take us out of there. Very inspiring words, I have to say, from Professor Chatman. So I hope that students listen and very closely and intently to that, and are going to take those words and use them for your map, for your vision board, right? You got to map everything out. That's why I tell young people all the time, it's so important to plan, what is your vision? What's your, like when you're creating a business, they always want to know, like, what's the outlook for your business 5-10 years from now? What sort of world do you want to end up in 5-10 years from now? It's obviously it'll be a lot. It very well will be a lot different from what you had anticipated or planned. But it's always good to plan, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, as the maxim goes. So just always envisioning exactly where you want to be, and as you're envisioning where you want to be, you're creating that outlook for you 5, 10, 20 years from now, the type of world that you want to be in, the type of world that you also want to build for you, for your family, for your community as well. It's just all the better in terms of achieving those outcomes. I'll leave this one last thought here too. It's all about contributing to that common good, that good that's not only for you, but that common good for everyone around you. That's really what we have to strive for. That's so important, especially for our communities, the type of communities that we're from, because that struggle, that never ceases, it never stops. That fight is ongoing. But it has to be ongoing to preserve those types of wonderful outcomes that we're all striving for. So definitely really appreciate Professor Chatman. Thank you for those words, for those remarks. It was a beautiful speech, very heartfelt. Thank you for those parting words. Michelle Harvey, Cheryl Moore, thanks for putting this all together. The whole Learn for Life team for making this possible. I'm sad that we couldn't get Peter Groff on here, but we'll get him next time. I'm sure we're going to set something like this up in the very near future. So, and we'll have more opportunities to talk about this. I'm Charles Ellison, of course, and so also heading up the Civic Literacy and Media Influence Fellowship for Learn for Life students. We just, we're in the 9th week of our very first inaugural cohort of the fellowship. So we got some very special Learn for Life students there. So I think you can go to clmi.learnforlife.org for more there to check that out and some of the wonderful work that the students are putting in together for that, and looking forward to the second cohort and future cohorts to come. So I'm going to sign off. Obviously, you can listen to WURD. Watch it too. You can go to wordradio.com for more information on Reality Check. That's my daily public affairs program every Monday through Thursday. You know, you can get a dose of that. I think I might be reaching out to Professor Chatman to get her on to talk about some of what's happening in the law. But everyone else, please be safe out there. Try to stay cool as best you can there out west. And we're going to stay dry. Maybe send you a little water your way out here on the east. But everyone, have a great day. Be safe out there.
And we will see you back here tomorrow for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Have a great evening. And that's it for the CAP team. Thank you.
Thank you all.